Thank you so much, Delise. I appreciate that. And I'm excited. And let me know that you can see my screen, that it's all I'm coming in loud and clear, or a thumbs up or using the reaction. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to get myself situated. Well, this is a topic that I am geeking out about because I am a project manager. I'm also a business owner, and I have seen the power of having a project management mindset in really pushing my ideas forward in my projects. And that's with my clients as well as my own business projects. A little bit more about me. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area in gorgeous Prince George's. I got into project management not on purpose. I was an accidental project manager. So I did work in the healthcare field. So that's why I call myself a misfit project manager, because a lot of times when people think about project managers, they think construction, IT, government contracting. That wasn't me. Even though I was in government contracting, it was in the healthcare side for the Veterans Health Administration. And I just fell in love with it. And especially when I sat through a certification class. I also love to talk. So I do public speaking, speaking now. I have been on the international circuit, keynote circuit, as well as workshop. I'm a mentor to folks that are looking to transition into project management. As Delise said, that I am the author of PMP Exam Prep for Dummies. So with my book, I also train people to get the certification called PMP, Project Management Professional, along with an additional certification around Agile project management. Mostly what I really attach myself to is training folks to think and act and lead like project managers, because a lot of times we have an idea that we have gravitated towards, or someone dumped the idea on our laps, and we're kind of like, how do I get from now to done? And that's where I want to get you to. At any point, so I'm kind of toggling between screens. If at any point you have thoughts and ideas in the chat, when I'm going to ask Delise, if you don't mind. Hey, Crystal, I see a question that came up in the chat. I would love to do that, because now I realize I have a different screen than the actual team screen. So I just want to make sure that I don't miss anybody. Yes.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect.
Gotcha.
Thank you. All right, here we go. Here's the situation. You're 6 months in to the year. You have 3 project ideas. You're like, I don't know which one's the priority. I don't know what to do. And in 6 months, you don't have any of those projects finished. Here's where I want to talk to you about getting that business idea to becoming a business result when you treat it like a project. And that's where the thinking will really move you forward to getting your idea done. So I want to move you from this. Without having a project management thinking, this is where your ideas just kind of languish. You feel like you're having Groundhog Day every Monday. You're starting over, dare I say, pivoting. You're guessing at what's really a priority. You're feeling burnt out, and you're blaming yourself for the stall. I want you to move toward a project management mindset where you're thinking about, how can I get that idea to finish? How do I think about it as a project? This means that you are doing the work in small bites. So that's where you have weekly progress on how you're progressing. You're making decisions based on your capacity, what makes sense for me to put my time and energy toward, as well as cash. And I'll dive in a little bit more about that when I talk about cash. I also want you to be thinking about the energy that you're spending. Is it the right stuff? Because you can be busy and not get anything done. And then I also want to get you in the mindset with project management thinking is having a system in place. And that system, that's a system that you can lean into even when the weeks get hard. And trust and believe, as an entrepreneur, there are going to be some hard weeks. And if you have a system, you can keep pushing and keep going. So with that in mind, there are 4 core stages in project management. So I'm not going to go in depth the way that I do with my PMP bootcamp classes. I'm going to give you the high level. This is what I teach when I go into corporations and teach their staff Project Management 101, because they too are accidental project managers. Every business, every priority moves through these 4 stages. And when we find ourselves skipping one of these stages, that's where your idea is kind of. So the 4 stages are to initiate. So truly think about, why am I doing this? Plan, defining the deliverables, figuring out the right sequence, and establishing dates. Not the 6 months from now, not the spring from now, not the March from now. I'm talking March 14th. Put a date on it and work towards it. And then the big hard part for us as business owners is now setting the time to execute. Since you've put together a plan, now you need to move the work forward. And that's what execution is about. And then ultimately, you're going to have a closure of the project itself. So if you're setting up something, the closure is that it's now set up. And now you get to see the fruits of your labor of that project, of that idea. Make sure you have a retrospection around that. So that's our debrief about what worked well. What can I learn from that into the next project that I'm moving forward? So we're going to walk through these 4 stages, and I have 2 examples that kind of hopefully give you context as to how this might look depending on the type of business that you have or that you plan on setting up. All right, you ready? So stage 1, this is initiating. This is where you're deciding what you are building and why does it matter? Why does it make sense for me to do it now? So let's say that you're opening a location, maybe even a second location. So the question you should be asking yourself in this example is, well, what neighborhood am I going to put this location in? How big is it going to be? What's the square footage? What services or products am I offering there? And why is it important to do it now in this year? So what you would produce as a part of answering these questions is a one-page charter naming the location, the numbers, and what would make it a yes for me to move forward. And I'm going to pause here for just a second. And Delisa, I'm going to ask a huge favor. I have a PDF for you all to kind of walk you through these steps. So if you would be so kind as to drop that in the chat for everyone to grab, and that's a reference point for you all.
Doing that now for you.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This will be a good time to take some water.
I had to upload it to my OneDrive. Pardon me, guys.
What was that?
I said I uploaded to my OneDrive.
Okay.
Pardon me.
All right, not a problem. And we can still keep going while you all get that resource for you. And I'll reference it again before we end. Now, some of you might not be a brick and mortar type of business. You're more service-based, home-based business. So I want to provide a complementary example. So maybe you're launching a new service or a product, maybe an e-product, for instance, or a digital product. Similar question that you want to ask yourself: which service am I offering, for which customer, and why am I adding it to my portfolio of products and services that I provide? You as well would document this in a one-page charter, naming that offer, who's the target buyer, and what does the first sale look like? Are they downloading it from my learning management system? Are they downloading it from some of these other portals that are out there? Gumroads, I think, is one of them. If it's like an ebook, or am I telling them to do it and download it from Instagram? Whatever it is, but you want to make sure that you are thinking about the whys and the hows before you just start going out there. Really internalize what you're doing. A tool for this stage can be a blank piece of paper. It can be a Word document, Google Doc, a notes app. If you're one of those folks that love the like OneNote or Evernote, which I'll talk about, you don't have to overthink it. But as as a gift for you in the attachment that you all will have your hands on, I do have a sample one-page charter for you.
It's in the chat for everybody.
Say that again.
It's in the chat for everybody.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. And that one-page charter is the third page of that document. Going into stage 2, planning. That's where you get specific around defining what deliverables, what are the widgets, the things that you are going to produce, in what order, and establishing realistic dates. So going back to our second location example. So our deliverables are to sign a lease, secure permits and inspections, hire and train the staff that's going to be at that location, run the grand opening on a real date. That bolded one, that's our huge milestone. On a real date, not 6 months from now, not spring, not March 14th. Like, set a real date and then work towards that. That's a part of planning. For those of us service-based, this is where you design the offer and set the price. You're choosing your marketing approach. Once again, are you going to be marketing to your mailing list? Are you marketing on social media like LinkedIn or Instagram? And that makes a difference. Customers who are on LinkedIn are a different kind of customer on Instagram. So that's why you think about that in the beginning when you establish your charter and think about who the target market is. And identify that pilot customer. Think about their demographics. Sometimes we call them a persona, right? Or your customer avatar. What do they do? What do they like? What do they shop for? That's the same for both examples. And book the launch date on the calendar. Get specific. So this is where you'll take your charter idea, and now with dates, you'll want to put that maybe in a spreadsheet or task board. There's like a task board that's called Kanban. So if you've ever Googled people, maybe project management, for instance, and you see like all these happy people with sticky notes, they're at a Kanban board. So they're like placing things like, here's what I have, here's what I'm going to do, here's what I'm doing, and here's what's done. So that's what I mean by a Kanban board. And you might already have a project tool in place. Use that. But this is where I'm going to do a little bit of a break from the main presentation since we're talking about tools, because I get the question quite often, and sometimes off the cuff, people will grab me at a meeting and they're like, hey, Crystal, what project management tool do you think I should use? And this is usually my response. I'm like, I have no context. Like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what to go buy, because I don't know your budget. I don't know what you like. I don't know if you're a Mac user, now I forgot, a Windows user, anything of that sort. So it's not as easy as, oh, you should use this tool, because I want to have a lot more information about everything from around your budget and your comfort level with tools. So first, just start simple. No fancy software is needed. If you have 1 or 2 initiatives that you are working on, you probably already have the tool on your computer, and save the dedicated software for when you need to scale and when you need to kind of, mass produce things. Start with the to-do lists and checklists and templates. There are a ton of templates on the web. There are a ton of templates that you can probably already get from CCBC on keeping you organized and capturing your thoughts. But the key is writing it down, not keeping it in your head, and have an organized way of writing it down. And because I was talking about dates, use your calendar. I have a rule. If it's not on my calendar, it is not getting done. And if it's a meeting that I need to attend, and if it's not on my calendar, I am not attending it, because I'm just going to forget. So whether it's Google Calendar, Outlook, if you are a paper planner person and you hold yourself to it, definitely write it down. And find a communication rhythm, not only for yourself, but also with any team members that you might connect with, maybe your clients that you might work with, would-be clients, anything of that sort. And there are everyday tools that can up the game a bit, like Microsoft Outlook and Google Workspace, depending on your preference, they in of themselves, if you Google it, YouTube University it, quite honestly, you can just do how can I use or turn my Microsoft Outlook into a project management tool. You will find folks to say, hey, you use this tool for that, and just find a system. Same thing with Google Workspace. I mentioned before how some of you might be really inclined to use apps like Evernote or OneNote as your kind of to-do list. I know Google at one point had Keeps, and they kind of phased it out. I liked it a lot for like quick notes that I wanted to keep for myself electronically that just wasn't complicated like some other tools that are out there. Now, I will share 3 tools, upping the game a little bit more, that I have found helpful for me, that I have used. So perhaps you have encountered these tools. So I would be remiss if I didn't talk about them, but it's not an endorsement to use one over the other or maybe any other tools. The 3 tools that I have found valuable in my business, and it's not recommended that you pick 3. It's just because I work with clients in the project management space and they keep mentioning these. So I'm well versed in 2 of the 3, and the third one I think it's a phenomenal tool, so I'm kind of geeking out on that. So I'll talk about that one first. ClickUp. I wasn't really all that like thrilled about it, only because I spent more of my time in Asana and Monday.com. ClickUp, I hear people talking about it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm good. Like I don't have the brain capacity to learn more tools. But when I did some recent training with a nonprofit client and they told me they do ClickUp, and I was like, okay, that's great. I'm not going to teach it because it's just that's not in scope. But we can talk about it as part of the training. And when I had them demo for me what are some of the things that it can do, it spoke to just about 99% of what I teach in hardcore project management. And it doesn't feel hardcore. It doesn't feel like a construction project management tool. It's still user friendly from my perspective. And it's got the confetti when you complete a task. I'm like, this is still fun. I was pretty impressed with it. This is where you can get a lot of features within this tool. There is a lot of generous stuff that they give you for free. There is more setup time. So that's why, when you do your research, and I can't just say, well, just pick this tool. Some tools require more setup that may not be worth your while. Now, my first kind of getting serious from unlike the typical tools that you might hear of like Microsoft Project, but these are more kind of, I would say, consumer friendly versus enterprise. Asana was my first one that I just really delve into. There's something so magical about a unicorn flying across the screen when you hit done. And that's one of the key features of Asana. I think of it as more of like a task management. You have a list of tasks. You can see it in different views, but I typically default to the task view. And I have onboarded a lot of contractors who work with me, and it was the easiest onboarding. Like there wasn't a lot of training. There isn't going back to email. They actually use the tool in communicating with me. And so now I can reference it. Instead of looking through my inbox, I can reference our communications within Asana. I've a lot of clients that like the tool. It's nice from a scaling perspective and ease of use and price point as well to a degree. And then Monday.com, I came across that one because they had a lot of functionality that I was missing out of Asana. And Monday.com was because I also was training a different client who was using this tool. And I was like, well, for this training, I'll use the 14-day trial to upgrade and see what all the features they have. And I was very impressed. So I've also started using that. So between Asana and Monday.com, I, I, depending on the type of contract I have, I might use one over the other. But they all have a freemium version. Honestly, my recommendation, don't buy unless you like, hit the jackpot with a huge client and then you see the necessary tools and features. But the features at the free level for all three of these, you get more than enough functionality that you would need for the things I'm talking about. Delise, are there any questions in the chat regarding tools?
Nope, everybody's good.
Okay.
Now I do have a question though.
Yes.
And so, I oversee a lot of projects and things. If I were to start with one software, have you found it easy kind of going between softwares or, and kind of putting information in both, or do you suggest people starting out with just one?
Just one. Yeah, okay. Just one, because I don't have the same projects in both Asana and Monday. So when I first started out with Asana, I was working with my contractors. So I use that one mostly with my 1099 contractors. And then my Monday.com, I use that one for my client work. And so that way I still kind of dabble in both, but I just didn't want to transition my
Gotcha.
contractors to Monday after I'd already convinced them to use one.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I think Monday is an easy transition, but you know how it is. Everyone's seem to be changing technology all the time. And I just not want that. I didn't want that cognitive overload for them.
Yeah.
If they're consistently using the tool with me, I love it. But, and by the way, Asana, I'm using the free version and I can still invite guests to use it with me. So I'm still and they don't have the same email address as I do. So that's another kind of plug. And I actually can do the same with Monday.com. I invite them as guests versus teams. So that's a way that you can still bring in other folks, outside folks, without having to buy seats per se.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, so you've got a plan. You all are putting it into some kind of something, whether it is a spreadsheet, your notes, or if you decided you're using one of these tools. Now it is time to execute to that plan. This is where you're moving your work forward 1 week at a time. A lot of times we think we have to do everything in, just kind of figure it out, but break it apart week by week. That's where you see progress. And protect your progress from distraction. And distractions are so easy for us as entrepreneurs. There's this meeting, there's this webinar. I mean, of course you need to join my webinar, but there's this, this new book, this new idea, and you have to remember, stay the course. And that's why having it written down truly helps you, and having it in your face. So going back to our first example of opening the second location, tracking your weekly status with your contractor and the real estate lead about progress of this new location, tracking the permits, doing the hiring, inventory management. That's all a part of the work of executing and moving your idea forward. And the thing is that by documenting the dates, the milestones that you had expected to meet, when you see something slips, you are now making decisions to move dates. And it's not just kind of this I'm doing it, I'm going to get to it. Oh, instead of March 14th, it's now going to be April 3rd. Now you have something tangible to speak to, but it's not something in your head that someday I'll get to it. You plan on getting to it, but life happens. And so you might be moving the date along. For launching the new service or product, build the offer to good enough and then show it to a real customer. not cousin Bobo, not mama and them, like a real paying customer. Of course, our family's going to buy it from us, but I'm talking about a real customer. That's where you're going to see progress. Tell 3 to 5 existing customers before you think you need to put it out there on the internet. Now, sometimes people think like, I've got to go big or go home, but there's something around testing it out. It's what we call an MVP, minimum viable product, an MVP. Just get something out, bare bones, no frills functionality. Get something out that you can get 4 or 5 customers to give you some insight, and make a sale before you do the full launch, or before you feel like the full launch has to be perfect. That's what executing looks like. Everybody thinks that they have to like full speed ahead and get to done, but executing is seeing the progress. When you get to done, that closure, that last step is where you finish. Yes, launched. Make sure you do a reflection, a debrief, and decide, now that I've launched it, now that I've opened the store, what's next? And a lot of times we skip this step. Even in traditional project management thinking, we will skip the step of a full closure and a reflection of what went well and what could we improve upon. So with opening a second location, the grand opening happens. Yay! Don't wait. Don't just say, I'm done. What's that 90 days in review? Review the numbers against your one-page charter. Did you meet your revenue goals? How'd you do in your labor costs when you hired all those folks? Did you get the traffic that you expected coming into your store? And decide how we're going in, we're doubling down, we're going to stay the course. Or do you need to make an adjustment to the model? Or do you maybe need to close the second location early? And hopefully, as a part of the initiation, what does that look like for, canceling a lease after a year versus signing up for 5 years, whatever it is. I would rather fail fast than try to say, oh, I'm going to find a way to make it work. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, and that's okay. That's a part of learning.
So you've got a question in the chat.
Go for it.
They asked, if you were to set a very specific deadline on a project, would you recommend a personal limit of how many times one would delay that project date/time?
Not necessarily limit, but I would, that's where you definitely want to kind of have your pre-debrief, if you will. So we try to have a lessons learned throughout the course of your project, not necessarily waiting until the very end. Someone said it today best. When you wait to the end to have a lessons learned discussion, it's really lessons recorded, because the learning piece is that you can actually implement it right now. So if you find that you're moving the date because of permitting, you overestimated or underestimated the time it would take to get the permits, or the hiring of staff, neighbors, the neighborhood having issues with the type of shop that you're setting up, that's something for us to reflect on of, what do I possibly need to do to change? Because if I'm just arbitrarily just saying, okay, it's not going to be April 4th, it's going to be June 4th. Well, why did you pick June 4th? So really think through that. Is it because of holidays with the permitting office? Is it because of, and I'm thinking about, just being in the city of Baltimore, there are a lot of festivals, right? So there could be a lot of competition for time because they're also dealing with permitting for all these festivals in the city. So that's where, there isn't necessarily a too many times of pushing back, but I think it does need to be reflective of the strategic goal, like why and why now. That's why you have that conversation, whether with yourself or with, people that you trust. Why do I feel like I need to do this now at this time frame? And then that's where you back into, well, what is happening, or what's my capacity to be able to do it? What is my need to do it now? And is it realistic? So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, and it might be controversial, but to that question, there's the purple line, right? With all the troubles they had of getting it moving, they could have certainly have said, do we just stop doing this? But they still continue to do it. I'm excited about it because it's going to connect in my county at New Carrollton in Prince George's County to Montgomery County, that I don't have to take, there's a road like similar to what you all have, your own beltway, I think 695. We have our own beltway. I don't have to get on that beltway. I can just take that train to Bethesda, and it's a 63-minute ride. And they solved the need, even though they had all their troubles. And I geek out about that story because that is a project management lesson learned for so many reasons. But they pushed the date, but they saw the strategic need for it. So that's my encouragement for you all. If you feel like you're pushing the date, it could be for reasons that are out of your control, but you still see the strategic need for what you are doing. When it comes to closing our new service from the launching of that product or service, hey, we got our first true paying customer. So not the customers that were already in my sphere, but someone found me and they said, I'm buying what you got. Review what worked. Everything from, was the pricing right, to how it was delivered, the messaging that you got out there to people, and thinking about what they bought. And from that debrief, you're going to decide, are you going to offer more? Are you going to scale it? Are you going to license it? Do you need to make adjustments in the product, or do you need to retire it? I've had a couple of projects that I have retired, and I've learned a lot. I've been able to pull things that I created from there to repackage it as something else. So I don't see it as losing. It was a mentor of mine said, you only lose if you lose the lesson. So every opportunity, everything that you do is a lesson to get better. But it never fails. We get stalled. We something gets in our way, some type of distraction. And there are 3 patterns that keep showing up over and over again. And one of these is probably yours. So I'm going to eventually ask you in the chat, honestly, which one of these is one of your patterns. Maybe you're like me and you're a perfectionist, and you just have to keep polishing it, right? So you rewrite the plan, you redesign the logo. My personal favorite, how many of you are guilty of the website has to be perfect and you have updated your website 15 times? I am not going to admit how many times I've updated my website. I just did it this week. You don't get the project shipped because you constantly feel like you've got to add, it's got to be perfect. Perfect is the enemy of done. Get it out there. Get the draft to someone, the prototype into someone's hands. That teaches you more than having a polished product, because it's never going to be perfect ever until they use it. And then when you get the feedback, then you can make those tweaks and the modifications. Another thing that comes up, and this is a term we use all the time in projects, and you probably have heard this term, scope creep, where you keep adding, you keep adding. Every addition is reasonable, but you keep adding together, your project is never going to finish. That's oftentimes what is the reason. So going back to that earlier question about, are you pushing the deadline because you keep adding to it instead of just putting it out there? Here's the fix though. If something that you have discovered is new, is truly important, trade it for something else. So if this is a case of, we need to add this, what can you remove? Just so that you can balance your time and not push back your deadline too much. The third one, busy, but you're not done. So we think activity, oh my gosh, and I'm guilty of this. When people call me up, they're like, hey, Krista, how are you? I'm busy. And then I have to take a step back and say, but am I productive? Every day seems full, but I don't have anything measurable. I don't have anything at the end of my week or the 2 week sprint to show for it. That's something that I need to look in the mirror and say, did I get myself caught up and distracted? And I have done that many a times, mostly because I didn't write it down like I was supposed to. And I let the distraction and the shiny object syndrome get to me. Here's the fix to that. If you cannot name the deliverable that moved this week, so in the case of the second location, if you didn't contact the permitting office, not that you got the permit, but if you didn't hear anything or contact the permitting office, that in and of itself is a deliverable. And you were like, well, how did you move your project forward? You were busy but not productive. Or in the case of your product launch, if you didn't get your updates to your developer and they're like, hey, do you have any feedback for me? Oh, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. You're busy, but you weren't productive. So let me ask you all this. This is Circle of Trust. In the chat, which one are you guilty of? You can say the words, or you can just say 1, 2, or 3. Are you a perfectionist? Are you a scope creeper? Or I'm always busy? What's the honest truth here? Which one are you?
So you've got a mix right now of being perfectionist, and then someone has said they're busy but not done.
Yeah. And this is not a knock on anybody, because I'm guilty of all these. This is a lot of times when I do these presentations, it's therapy for me. So just know that I am here as your cheerleader, is that this is an opportunity to take a step back and really recognize, am I doing too much, or do I just need to put something out there? And there are going to be people who don't like it, but they're not your customer. Like, that is really what it is. That they're like, no, I don't need it. It's not, oh, what's wrong with me? They're not my customer. They're not who needs me. There's somebody who needs you. Trust and believe. Here's something else that gets in our way is prioritizing everything, and we feel everything is urgent. I think, a lot of people by now should know the saying, if everything's a priority, nothing is. So if you've got 5 projects at one time, or the 3 projects, my earlier example, at one time, and everything feels urgent, I'm going to challenge you to take a step back and score using kind of a scoring of 1 to 5. And lucky you, within your packet, you have a prioritization tip sheet on page 4 of that packet, of deciding based on these 3 dimensions. Do you have the capacity to get this done within 90 days? So that's kind of how you couch it, right? I got to give myself a deadline. Can I get all 5 things done in 90 days? Do you have the capacity, as you assess each one of those initiatives, each one of those projects, can I realistically put in the hours and energy in the next 90 days to tackle this project, now this project, now this project? Cash. So I promised that I would dive into this. Does that project grow or protect your cash flow within that time frame? Or can I fund it? That is huge for me, because there are some things that I'm like, yeah, I want to do it. Oh, but I need to buy this. But another project, well, if I get this done, this will actually bring in money. And the third dimension, is it a strategic fit? Does this move your business toward where you want to be? If you want to be in that second location, if you want to launch that new product, if you want to have a cash infusion, is this meeting this strategic fit for me? And if you have something that scores low on all 3 and you really still feel like you need to do it, then it's really more of a signal that maybe you need to update your strategy. You don't have to scrap that project. I mean, if it feels really important to you, but maybe your strategy has changed. Maybe your overall vision and goal of what you have. And that's okay too. Many of companies and organizations have taken a strategic change. Here's my recommendation, and something I try to do before I end the day on Fridays is I have a Friday review, and I take 10 to 15 minutes asking these 3 questions. What moved this week? Thinking about the specific deliverable that went from not done to done. Is there anything that stalled? Why? Did I get distracted? Did I get pulled into a meeting? Did someone ask me for something? Did I get into the perfectionist trap? Name that blocker. And is it the same blocker week after week? So this is the version, this Friday review is the version of those intermittent debriefs that you have with yourself to make sure that you're catching yourself from stalling your own progress. And think about what is the one thing that I need to make sure gets done next week. You'll have a list of 5 things, and you're going to be ambitious, just like I am. But what's the one thing that I absolutely need to make sure gets done? Not all 5 of those things. And here's how I want you to take it back to your business. Pick a priority. So choose the business initiative that you've been thinking about that really matters most to you for the next 90 days. Write that on the 1-page charter that I provided for you. Put it in a place that you will reference often. So if you're going to use this template, make sure that it's visible, that you're constantly looking at it, because it's going to be easy. It's only Tuesday, and I already found myself getting a little bit distracted. And I have because I put this into practice. I make sure that what I teach you, not only am I the president, I'm also a client. I have been looking at my own 1-page charter, and it has been tremendously effective of moving forward. If you want to use a tool like ClickUp or Asana or just a spreadsheet, that's fine, but just pick one. This isn't the time to test, all of them, unless that's a part of your business model of testing project management tools. But set it up and make sure that you are working towards it. And make sure that you book the Friday review. And what I'm going to challenge you all, just go ahead and put it on your calendar right now. I'll wait. Just block 10, 15 minutes. This is where someday is not a day of the week. Go ahead and put it on the calendar. May 1, put 10 minutes on your calendar. I'm going to do that as well. And that, my friends, is the end of my piece. This is where I want to open up for more questions. Anything that I can answer for you, we can dive in specifically about tools. I am a talker, so I'm very impressed with myself that I gave enough time for you all to chat with me. So go and give me some questions.
So I have a question. I want to thank you so much for the presentation. What is the difference for those who may not know between a PMP and a CAPM?
Absolutely. So it's more of years of experience. So the Certified Associate of Project Management, or the CAPM, some of us call it the CAPM. There's no work or project management requirement. It's an exam. There's no application you need to submit. You pay the fee for the exam. You get ready, study, prepare, go take the exam, pass the exam. And it's really a signal to people that you are serious about the project management profession, but you're also letting them know, hey, I'm just getting started. I'm an entry level. Some companies value the CAPM. especially if you're already within an organization and they have kind of career ladders in the project management lane, they will support you in the CAPM credential. The PMP, or Project Management Professional Credential, is where you have at least 3 years of experience as a project manager if you have a bachelor's degree or higher. And they're actually changing it up starting July 9th, where if you have an associate's degree or a vocational education, that's where you would demonstrate 4 years of project management experience and within the past 10 years. If you have a high school diploma and you want to achieve the PMP, you need to demonstrate 5 years of leading or directing, so having project management experience within the past 10 years. So that's just where the PMP now has education requirements as well as an application that you need to submit. The exam is more rigorous. It's a lot more scenario-based questions. So it's a lot of cognitive load. A lot of people are like exhausted after taking the exam, whereas the CAPM is pretty straightforward. And people have said, yeah, it was, memorization, whereas the PMP is like, what should the project manager do? You're like, I don't know. This is what I would do. So it's definitely where you want to get prepared for the PMP. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And then there's another question in the chat. Someone has asked, what industry for project management do you think is best for entry level?
What industry for project management do I think is best for entry level? That's a hard one, only because they have changed a little bit. Now, I don't know if I could answer that. A lot of companies aren't very good, unfortunately, with entry level. They want a unicorn to already come in with project management experience. That has changed over the last 5 years, unfortunately. I would say if you can find apprenticeship, so Google has apprenticeship programs for project management where you can start out entry level. If you can find an organization that is really forward thinking on mentoring and bringing up people, but that will have to be through more networking conversations versus finding the roles. I mean, just today I spoke with someone with an association related to electrical and plumbing contractors. And she had mentioned that there are assistant project management roles, but I'm not familiar with like how much work experience they want an assistant project manager to have. I have seen a couple, I would say maybe more in the maybe transit or trades, because of the fact that the labor pool is so limited. Everybody wants to be like in like IT or something. But if you go to like Purple Line, or if you go, or MDOT, or if you go to here in the DC area, our subway system is called WMATA, the Washington Metro Area Transit Authority, you might see a lot more opportunities from that standpoint. So I hope that answers your question around that. The entry level has been unfortunately really tough for folks.
Thank you. And then someone else has another question. They said they only really know the basics of project management and construction. They wanted to know what kind of projects, what did projects look like for you when you were in the healthcare field?
Yeah, so business process improvement. We would maybe change the way that we were intaking our patients in terms of patient registration. And so it would be a project, but I didn't know that. But we were putting together schedules, Gantt charts, we had kickoff meetings, and I wasn't called a project manager at the time. It was just do it. How I always tell people, you know that you are a project manager anytime your manager says to you, why don't you take the lead on this? Congratulations, you're a project manager. But yeah, healthcare, finance projects, just anything that's new and unique and it's not business as usual and they want you to do something a little bit different, or they say, I have a special project for you. That's definitely in that lane.
Deep learning. Okay.
Mhm. Wendy, did you have a question? I think your mic is on.
Anybody else have any other questions?
Oh, I see a DoD. Some DoD consulting firms have summer internship programs that could lend to PM experience. Yeah, sometimes they are. A lot of cases for the DoD, I see that they are through like a program called Skill Bridge, and so they are very supportive of military active duty that are transitioning out. So they will have that. It's again, unfortunately, with this economy, very competitive. So you might have people who have the PMP but never really managed a project. So they go after those as well. And like, wait a second, like you have the PMP, you're supposed to have experience. So that's been a little bit of a controversy over the last couple of years. But some of those summer internships, uh, I am a huge fan of internships and apprenticeships. It's a way to get your foot in the door, get that experience. And if you can find out about them and find out about them early, you're at a great place for that. So thank you for sharing that.